Hello, and welcome to the 5th episode of VAMONOS, a variety show produced by the teens of the ESB-MAC leadership program Caminos. In this episode, we feature new segments, including Passion for Fashion, also our interactive book club, plus our Business Insight interview segment with Isaac Padilla of Que Rico T-Shirt Company. We'll also explore Latinx muralist Raul Valdez's iconic Pan-American hillside mural originally created in the mid-70s, and take a look at our own architectural dreams for the future of the MAC building. Get cozy, get comfortable, y vámonos!
I am the change because I care about my future as a 15-year-old Hispanic woman who doesn't have the right to vote yet, and I care about the futures of other marginalized groups and those who don't have the right to vote yet, whether it's because they're undocumented, underage, or in prison. And I'm the change because I'm not a bystander, and when I see something done that isn't right, I stand up for what I believe in, and I do something about it.
I am the change because I believe that our united voices will overpower the strong forces of institutional oppression.
My name is Elizabeth Diaz, and I am the change because I care about what's happening around the world, and I am taking the actions to educate myself and try and become someone who impacts our community for the better.
Hello, my name is Kiona. I'm a caminante, and I am the change because I'm an artist who does not tolerate the reality of today. So I live to change it through my art and the messages that I spread.
Me llamo Ethan Estrada y yo soy el cambio porque lucho por mi comunidad en cada manera que puedo. En las palabras de César Chávez, sí se puede.
My name is Marina, and I'm the change because I strive to make this world better for everyone in it, and I will support those in need of support.
Hello everybody, welcome to the first ever episode of Passion for Fashion. My name is Giselle Muniz and I'm one of your hosts for this segment. Today we will be exploring ways we can express our creativity through denim apparel. You know, it's the fall season and we want to be able to show people who we are through what we wear. The supplies I am using are pretty basic. I have 2 textile paints in the color Ruby Red and yellow ochre. And some generic paintbrushes. So if you would like to try this tutorial at home, just so you know, these supplies are relatively inexpensive and very easy to find at your local store. With the supplies out of the way, let's get started. Before we begin, I would love to introduce y'all to a new designer from the Passion for Fashion team, Kiona Redmond. Kiona Redmond has an amazing style and we will be featuring her designs in this episode so y'all can get some inspiration to what y'all can do in y'all's future projects. Thank you so much, Kiona, for being a part of this team. Welcome back, y'all. This is my little personal space to, provide y'all a little bit more reflections on my processes of this art project. For me, I decided to go with my name, or kind of like a stage name that I adopted throughout last year, because I feel like a lot of my identity comes from being in the South. And the South is all I ever knew for most of my life. and I absolutely love it. I absolutely love how, we have such diversity, and we have a lot of major cities, and probably, I'm so sorry, Austin, my favorite city has to be Houston. Southtown kind of keeps it vague because you don't know which town you're referring to. I feel like Texas has a lot of special places to discover, and I just love the name because it ties with my Southern identity. My name is Giselle, and a short version of my name that I really love is Sel or Sel. But unfortunately, not a lot of people attach to that nickname. And this is something that I want, and I feel like this is what I refer to myself. This is what I call myself, sort of my, like I said, a stage name. But this encompasses more of my identity of being in the South. I think names, especially naming or creating a name for yourself, has some very powerful energy behind it, because you're in a way consolidating your identity. And that's sort of the vibe of this video. I kind of want people to know who I am or what my name is, through a piece of clothing. Even strangers that come across you, they'll see your statement. They'll see your statement, and I just think that it's painting anything on apparel, just shows a part of you that you want to show to other people. Even if you're not having a conversation with them, it shows something about you. And that's just what I love about the idea behind painting clothes. Now we move on to the next part of the episode, in which we feature Kiona's stylized designs in case y'all want to include something simplistic in y'all's personal projects. Thank y'all so much for tuning in to today's episode of Passion for Fashion. I'll definitely be looking forward to seeing y'all in the second episode.
Welcome to Caminos Business Insight. In the show, we'll be discussing local businesses, entrepreneurship, and artists at the heart of Austin, Texas, as well as their start in the industry. I am Mil Marie Gonzalez, and today we're talking to Katie Cotis.
Yay!
Ina's Instagram, they were described as a Texas apparel company dedicated to pop culture designs para nuestra gente. Do you want to talk some more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, kind of how the business was started. So the business is co-owned by myself and my business partner. We actually grew up together in West Texas in Abilene. And many years ago, back in 2013, we actually started a different company. It was a men's accessory line, and we sold things like pocket squares and boutonnieres and things of that nature. And we were actually at a Dallas market. So for those people that don't know, a market is an event that you go to where you essentially pay to have a booth set up, and all these different stores and vendors from all over, the state really come to you to see if they want to buy your product for their individual stores. So it was during that time that we were actually walking around networking, meeting a lot of people, and we noticed that there weren't many, if at all, stores that really cater to Latinos. More specifically, we saw that we were really the very few Latinos that were even present, right? And so him and I just kind of started talking, and we were just kind of brainstorming, and at first it kind of started off as a joke, like, well, why are our people not being represented, right, in market? And that conversation just kind of evolved more and more, and it kind of turned into what is now Qué Rico T-shirt company. Him and I we had originally talked about transitioning our men's apparel line into selling like T-shirts and shirts and more apparel. But we just kind of figured, you know what, if we're going to do this, we've got to completely separate ourselves from that other company. And so it was funny, we started talking about, well, what are we going to name it? Like, we want it to be something that somebody hears it and they automatically know that it's Latino owned. And so we were kind of throwing around some things and some names, and there's actually a saying that him and I would say to each other as a joke, right? Like if we saw something that was really nice or really expensive, we would always say, "Ay, qué rico," And we just kind of thought, well, we should name our company that, and that's kind of how the name and the concept of Qué Rico T-shirt company started.
That's really nice. It's like a personal touch to everything in life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with quarantine and everything, but like before that, like what was y'all's like regular work day, or how many orders and everything? Like how was it usually like before?
So we started the company originally 100% online. We, at that early stage, we tried to approach local vendors in Austin specifically about, selling our product in their stores. But what we found was, because we were such a young company and because no one had heard of us, they weren't really willing to carry our product in their, stores. And we're talking about local small businesses, right? So originally we were primarily 100% online. Then what we started doing is we started attending a lot of festivals and fairs. So it started off with Etsy. Etsy has various fairs across the United States. So we did Etsy Austin, Etsy Dallas. I believe we even did one in Houston as well. And that kind of rolled into other events. So we started networking at those events, and a lot of the local vendors were telling us, oh, you guys, your product would be great at this event, or would be great at that event. And so they would give us contact information for all these other events in Austin, Dallas, Houston, as well as San Antonio. So it kind of slowly snowballed. So we went from doing just Etsy event to doing all sorts of different local events and fairs and art walks and just different events in these various cities. And then what we ended up doing is once we kind of started getting comfortable, we started to offer wholesale orders online, and we also partnered with a website called fair.com, who is essentially a website that manages wholesale orders. And that was kind of a game changer for us, because they were able to really get our product not only in really the Austin market, but throughout the whole state of Texas as well as nationwide. So we then started seeing our wholesale orders kind of tick up. And if you go to our website, we have a section of locations on our website, and we actually now sell in various small and local small business stores across Texas, and we just started selling in a store in California as well.
Oh, wow.
So really, to go back and answer your question, where we were kind of making the most money was through these fairs. And it kind of blew our mind, but in hindsight, looking back on it, when you look at a buyer's habit, people, of course, are buying online, but our product is such an impulse purchase, or that's what we found, is that when we were at fairs, we were touching people and getting customers that normally wouldn't buy us online because we are an apparel company. Most people, unless they know your company and your sizing, they're not going to, or they're less likely to purchase from you. But if you're at a fair, you're in front of them, they're able to look, try, feel. Sometimes we had people put on the t-shirts, right there in front of us, which was kind of a little weird for us at first. But we found that they were more likely to purchase. So our sales, soared while we were doing a lot of these fairs. Then, of course, COVID-19 hit. Yeah. And, it's been very interesting to see the purchase habit of customers now. Now all these fairs that we were doing throughout Texas, all the fairs are being canceled. So as of today, we only were able to do one fair, and that was a fair back in, two events. One that we did in January and one we did in February. One was in Austin, one was in Dallas. And right shortly after that is when everything hit. Events were being canceled or postponed. And so, of course, we've seen a huge dip in our sales. But what's interesting is that we've actually seen a slight increase on our online sales. So, the only thing that really we can attribute that is that people are at home with nothing to do. And they're shopping a lot more online, right? More so than they would be if we didn't have this pandemic going on. So it's definitely affected our sales. We're still in Q2 right now, so I haven't closed the books, obviously, in Q2. So I anticipate that we're going to see a very large decline in our sales. But really what we're having to do right now is just get really, really creative. A lot of the fairs, like for example, Etsy, I talked about them earlier. Etsy actually they transitioned their Dallas fair, they transitioned that to online. So it's been really interesting to see how these different companies that host all these fairs, how they're managing these fairs as they transition them virtually. I will say that the sales certainly have increased. We've gotten more sales during these virtual fairs than we have had we not. But yeah, it's definitely taken a hit.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, but maybe through this and like other people getting to see your products and everything with the pictures, fingers crossed, they get a little more sales. Yeah.
It's interesting. I actually did another fair that got canceled that they're doing it on virtually is Dallas Pride. Last year we did Dallas Pride, we did San Antonio Pride, and we did Austin Pride last year. And Austin and Houston, I believe, got canceled. Dallas is actually trying to do a virtual one, so it was interesting. Yesterday I had to go into a studio and essentially record on camera my virtual sales pitch to buy our t-shirts and our product. And I was talking to the promoter there while I was waiting for the cameras to get set up, and just really asking him, like, how are you doing this? Like, transitioning, or how's the process been? How are vendors responding to it? And he said it's been very mixed. But because this is the first time really for anyone, there really aren't any expectations. So I bring that up because, Roman, my business partner, and I, we're of the opinion that because no one really knows what's going to happen and no one knows how successful or not these things are going to be, it's at our advantage from a business perspective to really try a lot of these different sales tactics that are out of the ordinary or that are tactics that we normally wouldn't do if everything were back to normal. And right now, again, speaking from a business perspective, it's really trial and error. We're kind of collecting a lot of this experience and knowledge of how successful these virtual events are. And we'll use that, we'll run reports and analyze the data internally to figure out, in the future, when things do go back to normal, we don't know if businesses are going to continue to do virtual events in addition to live events to really capture a larger audience. So, it's a big unknown, not only for us as a small business, but also for these companies that are in the business of hosting events, kind of how they react and how we react as a result to how they act in the future once everything goes back to normal, if that kind of makes sense. Yeah.
Maybe like the difficulties of like having to find y'all and getting to get to know y'all like through all of this could bring more faithful customers for like the future, because like they'll be more accustomed to y'all, and then if things are like easier per se, they'll be like, oh, this is a company I want to like stay buying from,
Absolutely.
So,
and
hopefully
I would also say too, like something that's interesting that I've personally known as a consumer. So I've made sure that we practice this in our business, but customer service right now is on another level. Because you're now having to deal with so many other different, I won't say obstacles, but you're having to deal with different situations that we really didn't have to deal with as much prior to the pandemic. And I'll give an example. Customer service in sales tracking, right? Because now we're getting so many more sales online, of course we're human, and we make mistakes. So as an example, we had a order that we accidentally shipped to somewhat like a completely wrong address. We're not even quite sure how that happened, but the customer reached out to us, very weird, because the person that received the order had the customer's email address on the sales receipt. She emailed the person, basically said, hey, I got your order, but I'm not giving it to you because I'm not going to, I don't want to interact with anyone in the pandemic, so I'm going to keep this. You might want to go ahead and contact the company, which I thought was very weird. We've never had to deal with that. So the customer reached out to us, and what I've learned is, as a business owner, you have to be on top of your customer service. Of course, we refunded, the order. We actually ended up giving her some additional free items as a thank you. We profusely apologized. And to your point, she actually posted about it on her social media, on her Instagram story, tagged us and said, great customer service, and this, that, and the other, which then in turn ended up being free advertisement for us. So, that's something that we're kind of having to navigate. And that's just one of a few weird situations that we've encountered. But yeah, we kind of have to roll with the punches and really treat every customer as if, they're the king and queen of our business, really.
Yeah, good karma.
Yeah, absolutely.
You were saying about having to be creative with like new products, maybe. So, would you be able to describe maybe some like new projects that you have going on right now?
Yeah, so in addition to really navigating how we do all these virtual events, we've had to get really creative with how we even do, how we promote and market ourselves, right?
Yeah.
I think prior to this, we just really relied on the events the live events and festivals that we were doing. When you partner with these events, they do a lot of promotion for you as part of your vendor package, right? Well, now what we've had to do is we've had to really revisit how we do our marketing. So it's not just, okay, well, we're going to put an Instagram promotion, or we're going to put a Facebook ad out there, right? We've had to really be very strategic on what promotions we do, the time or how relevant they are in the moment, right? And really find more interesting ways to engage with our customers.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is, whereas before we would just do a blanket, for this month, we're going to do 20% off of an entire order, right? We would blast it out to our email base. We would maybe do a Facebook promotion. But now that's not really relevant, right? Or that tactic isn't relevant, because now you have a lot of businesses that are really being very strategic and focused on how they're doing their promotions, and so we have to too, and they have to be very dynamic, and they have to be willing to adapt with the times. So as an example, we might run a promotion for one weekend, and then we might run a different promotion either that following weekend, or we might run like a flash sale where it's a 24-hour promotion. So we've had to be a little bit more diligent and more thoughtful and strategic on the promotions that we do, because customers right now, with everyone going online, everyone's being bombarded. I don't know if you've noticed as a customer, but everyone's being bombarded with, 25% off and Father's Day, and here's this and here's that and the other. And so we have to figure out ways that we can promote our business and separate ourselves from our competitors and really catch the eye of our customers. Because if not, we're just another email in their email box saying 25% off,
Right, yeah. So, helping you distinguish yourself from the rest of the competition, even the playing field.
Absolutely. And you have to do that as any business, right? Because to stay relevant. But I find now we have to be a little bit more diligent in making sure that we are staying on top of that. Yeah.
Right. I don't even know the questions. You're so good at this. Wow. Okay. So one of the last things is, what kind of advice would you give to other small businesses that are new and growing, that maybe through this quarantine or maybe after, just general advice that you think would help maybe young or just new business owners or company starters?
Yeah, I think the biggest advice I would give is that, and this is going to sound very generic, but then I'll go into detail what I mean by it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is don't let anything hold you back from what you want to do. And specifically what I mean by that is, I read an article in Forbes. It was a Forbes online article, and this was, years ago. I want to say maybe 10 years ago. That said, as an entrepreneur, if you are ever looking to start a business, you need to make sure that you have at least 6 months worth of your your income, or 6 months worth of savings saved up in order to survive. And I remember thinking at the time, before we started our company, Rowan and I, that was so discouraging, right? Because there was no way that we were going to do that. I have a full-time job, Rowan has a full-time job. We do this as our secondary side business, as a passion business, really. And I remember thinking, there's no way that that's ever going to be possible. And, you know, some people don't, when I tell them the story, kind of don't believe me, but it's 100% true. Roman and I started our business with $50. And the only reason why it was $50 is because we had to open up a business checking account. And with our bank, they required a $50 deposit to open the checking account. So Roman put in $25 and I put in $25. And that was when we started the men's accessory line.
Mm-hmm.
We have been very, very blessed in that we have not had to put additional funds into the business aside from that initial $50.
Wow.
Because we were very smart at the very beginning. We were very lean, right, in how we conducted business. We cost analyzed everything, right? So we were very, very careful with not buying a lot of inventory. That business, a lot of it was handmade product. So we started off with buying material in small doses as we needed it versus buying huge amounts of inventory that would just sit, in one of our offices.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would say is, don't let the idea of you not having enough money to start a business discourage you, because you can literally start a business with $50 or less, right?
Yeah.
I would say that you do have to be very, very careful and cautious of your expenses at the very beginning, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Bootstrap as much as you can at the very, very beginning. And then as you start to get income in, then you can, reevaluate your expenses and maybe get more resources that you might need to run the business. I would say that if you can, try not to take any money out of the business at the very, very beginning to pay yourself, if you can. And I say that because you do need cash flow to really get the business going. But once the business gets up and running, then you can again reevaluate if you want to, do payroll and do owner draws, etc. But yeah, if you really have the passion, don't let anything discourage you. If you really, really want to do it, it is very, very possible. And for me, the biggest drawback for many, many years was money. So that's probably the biggest piece of advice I could give any entrepreneur, Latino, anybody that is trying to start a business. Don't be discouraged. And really, speaking from a Latino perspective, when you see not enough representation of a certain market, and if you believe that you have a product that could serve that market, do not let anything discourage you. You have to be focused, you have to be passionate, and love what you do. And if you're passionate just in the fact that you want to show that you are a Latino, Latina, Latinx, it doesn't matter. If you want to show that you have what it takes and that you want to show the world that we have the ability to start and run thriving businesses, do it. Do it, because we need more people like you.
That's very inspiring. I really like that. But I think that's all the questions we have for today.
Awesome.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's Business Insight. Be sure to check out maybe our Instagram story for any sneak peeks. For next time, this is Isaac Padilla. If you want to say bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Caminos Literary Collective, and we're going to be reading Ars Poetica today by Jose Olivares, and Ethan's going to be reading it, and then we're going to be discussing it.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
So,
Nice. Yay.
Ars Poetica by Jose Olivares. Migration is derived from the word migrate, which is a verb defined by Merriam-Webster as to move from one country, place, or locality to another. Plot twist. Migration never ends. My parents moved from Jalisco, Mexico to Chicago in 1987. They were dislocated from Mexico by capitalism, and they arrived in Chicago just in time to be dislocated by capitalism. Question. Is migration possible if there is no other land to arrive in? My work, to imagine. My family started migrating in 1987, and they never stopped. I was born with migration. I've made my home in that motion. Let me try again. I tried to become American, but America is toxic. I tried to become Mexican, but Mexico is toxic. My work, to do more than reproduce the toxic stories I inherited and learned. In other words, just because it is an art doesn't mean it isn't inherently nonviolent. My work, to write poems that make my people feel safe, seen, or otherwise loved. My work, to make my enemies feel afraid, angry, or otherwise ignored. My people, my people. My enemies, capitalism. Susan Sontag, victims are interested in the representation of their own sufferings. Remix, survivors are interested in the representation of their own survival. My work, survival. Question, my poems. Answer.
Are we supposed to snap?
It is poetry.
Oh, we're supposed to snap?
No.
So when Jose Olivares says migration never ends, what do y'all think he means by that?
I think he probably means it like literally, like it's a never-ending thing. It's always happening.
For me, like an image comes up to my head that like there's somebody just like walking for like eternity.
Yeah.
I kind of think of the recycling symbol. Like it's a process that just like goes on over and over again.
Yes, like if you move from, like you're an immigrant and you move from one country to another and then you like settle, but you're not really settled because you might have to move for work, or like a lot of like people, like for instance in the 60s were like migrant farmers, right? So they moved for work in the summer, and that's what I sort of think about. Like it's, and also with gentrification, like we're like literally being forced out and like moving again. So there's like a lot of like, just layers of it.
Being part of two identities is kind of like you're like at two places, like mentally. You're American and you're Mexican, and so it's like you're always moving in between, like, who am I?
Yes.
What were you gonna say, Amy?
No. I don't
No.
Amy. Okay. Actually, your question is up next, Amy. So.
What do you lose in trying to identify in one way? And by that I mean, like, in the poem it says, in the poem it said, let me try again. I try to become American, but America is toxic. And I try to become Mexican, but Mexico is toxic. Like, what do you lose in trying to identify in one way?
I think something you lose is like the possibility, because like if you identify in one way, I think people will classify you in one way too.
Yeah.
So it's, so
it plays into the stereotype idea. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's like, because if like then you like do something, it's not like when you can't identify two ways, either because you're like mixed or because like you're like an immigrant and like moved from one country to another. It's like it's like there's like more possibility to be multiple things, but at the same time it's like when you identify in one way, it's like, I don't know, it can
very limiting.
Yeah, or even like very vulnerable too, because you're making a choice that other people may not see you in that way almost,
And if you identify as both, like both people may not see you as enough of one thing. Like you're not enough of a Mexican, or you're not enough of a American because you migrated, or just because of like anything.
Yeah, for sure.
It's true that when you try to identify as one way, it is like, oh, maybe you're missing something. Like, oh, you're like for example, like when people say, oh, you're too white to be Mexican, or oh, you're too dark to be white. It's the same thing that goes either way. Like, you're not accepted either way. So it's like you lose a lot. Like, either you embrace your culture, which is what most people do, or you completely deny it. And either way, there's something about you that someone's not going to accept. Like, that always happens. And it's especially like when it's like, oh, I can't be Mexican because I'm not dark enough. Like me, like I'm really pale and I don't look like it. Like I look pale. I mean, like I don't look Mexican. Like if you look at me, you're like, oh, she doesn't speak Spanish. Like you can't tell. And then there's like other people that was like I've encountered like not white people, yeah, white people, and they've told me like, you look like you speak Spanish. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Like I either look like I don't or I do. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really tough thing. So I guess we'll move to my question, even though we could talk like for a long time about this topic. But I guess my question is, so it's sort of a long one. Wait, and where do I have it? Let me read it because I like it. Okay. It's basically in the poem, the author writes, victims are interested in the representation of their own sufferings, and then a remix. Survivors are interested in the representation of their own survival. And I just was thinking, like, how are the phrases like different, similar, and like how do we represent our own survival? You know, I guess, yeah.
I could say they're similar in the way of like, it's like vice versa. Like if you're a victim, you're a survivor. If you're a survivor, you're also a victim. It's the same thing. That's what I see. I see it as like the same thing.
No, because a victim may not necessarily be a... Wait a second.
Hold
I take
on.
back what I was going to say.
No, I think it's something...
Oh, wait, actually, I am right. A victim may not necessarily be a survivor, and a survivor... Well, I think a survivor is a victim, but someone can be a victim and not, like, consider themselves...
Have survived.
I think...
Oh, yeah, like, they could still be, like, suffering from, like, what they encountered.
Yeah, I think also another difference is, like, a victim is something like a lot of people say, like, oh, they're a victim, but then a survivor says, I am a survivor. Like, you sort of, it's like, who's writing the narrative, you know?
Like, one is demeaning.
Someone else is writing your, like, but when you say I'm a survivor, you take that back. And I think that's sort of powerful too, you know?
My question was about the structure of the piece, because it has a lot of like colons that separate the different thoughts, where he says question, remix, things like that. They're like, I feel like it's hard to explain that. I have to like show it. But my question was like, what do you think the point of like structuring it like that was?
Yeah, I think of it as like a heading, like plot twist, migration never ends. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like remix. Like I don't know. Like I think of it as like
the remix.
Exactly. Exactly. Like it's just like to introduce it. Like, oh, it's not like this is what actually happens, or this is another way that people can see it.
Yeah.
Like instead of doing like paragraphs or anything or like stanzas, he chooses to do that. He makes the conscious decision to separate things by colons.
It continually sort of reframes like how you view the poem in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Like
it's also kind of reminds me of like a test when it's like, oh, put the answer here, like filling in the blank. It's like he's filling out an application or like answering his own questions by saying like, question, why poems? Answer, blank.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God,
like
maybe
The Office.
He's like,
sorry.
Maybe he's like asking you to fill out the answer. Like he's filled out all the other questions, and now it's your turn.
That's pretty powerful too. Yeah. I really like this poem because of that. Like it's like asking. Yeah. It's very you know, it's easy to read, but it's also in many ways. Yeah.
I think that's one of like the really eye-catching parts about this piece too, though, is like the weird way it's like structured.
Yeah, sure.
I like how it's written like a paragraph.
Yeah, prose poetry is that's really interesting. That's really cool.
It looks like a diary entry to me, just like jotting down the like thoughts he has on like the subject and stuff, and just like straight up like his feelings. But like, you know how thoughts aren't always like flowing and stuff. It's just like there's this and there's that and there's that.
Yeah.
So it kind of feels like that, but just like straight up like in a notebook or something.
So no, your question is the last question we have.
Oh my goodness. So it was, my question is, how does the topic of migration apply to your life? Like maybe in like a literal sense and a not so much.
In a literal sense, my mom and dad have migrated to this country. They're immigrants. And so like I'm a product of immigration and migration. And also I've been different places.
Yeah.
So I've migrated to visit different places, not like permanently. So I guess it's not migration. But I've like visited Mexico and like Colombia and like places where my parents are from and stuff. So
yeah.
Well, I can like in my like when I was taking it in a little less literal way, like when I was younger, me and my mom moved around a lot, like Austin and everything. And I sort of was feeling, I like in third grade, I went to like 6 different schools because we were moving around a lot. And yeah, so it felt very like, I don't know, like, I know like the feeling of like, it's very like unstable in a way, like you feel very like, you don't have time to like, you know, have roots, you know, it's sort of, you're searching for that, some sort of, I don't know, like, yeah, especially like, yeah.
I'm not sure. Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay, you can go.
I'm not sure exactly how it would play a part in my life because I'm very like, things don't change for me. Like I'm lucky enough to have that where like I can stay in one place and have things the way that I want them and have the time to be able to like process all of it.
That's really powerful. Like, yeah, when like you're moving, you know, through immigration or migration or however, it's like sometimes you don't get time to process things. You know?
Well, for me, my parents, they also migrated to here. And then in a span of my whole my whole education, I moved schools at least 5 times. Having to move and no one know you and just like look at you like, oh, who are you? Why are you here?
Yeah.
It's like, that's not funny. It's not hard, you're giggling.
Just the way you said it. Who are you? Why are you here?
No, but no, really, people would be like, you know, it's very like.
Yeah, for me, that has never been like every time I join a new school, they're like, who are you? Why are you here? I feel like all the schools I've been to are like kind of small, so they're just like, oh, I'm intrigued. There's a new person.
Yeah, not me. I moved into big schools, and then from a big school, I went to IDEA, and there they weren't really like, the students, some of the teachers, like the students were like not really welcoming. Because they've all known each other since 6th grade, and I ended up in 8th grade. You know what I mean? Like I went up 8th grade, and they're like, they don't really get new students. They get like 1 or 2 every year. But that's it.
Yeah.
Like everybody knows everybody. Legit, after like freshman year, we got no new students.
Wow.
Well, my school's like that too, but we are also very welcoming to new people. Like we always appreciate finding new people. So I feel like the area you're in sometimes, or
but they made me feel like crap. Like I didn't belong there. Like I was something I there was no point in me being there. Like why am I here? And then
I know exactly what you mean. Like when I went to like for my like instance like my high school like LASA, it was going from like a majority like all my like schools I had been to like were like majority Latino, right? And then it was like LASA's like majority white, so it's sort of crazy. Like it was like oh like you know.
Yeah, and everyone saw me as this rich white girl.
Really? I hate how like even in our own communities like we like even within the Latino community we're not like the most, sometimes we can be very like not welcoming of each other, and maybe that's what the poet also means in the poem, like like he tried to be either, but like it's both toxic in a way because everybody has an idea about who you should be and how you should identify, and yeah.
Just a buoy. That school is so white. They literally, at my school, she would be considered whitewashed, but like at Bowie, she's like, they literally make fun of her for being Mexican, and like her skin is paler than mine. And it's so weird how different environments can like bully you from like, or like treat you as different for like different things. Even if you're like so much of one thing, they'll be like, you're not enough. It's so weird.
You find that a lot, especially if you're like mixed in a school of mostly one.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Our school's mostly Mexican.
My school.
Well, actually, everyone is Mexican. It's just that some people just don't speak Spanish.
My school is a pretty well split between there's the Latinx group of kids, there's the black group of kids, and then there's the white group of kids. And like there aren't very many like mixed students, and so like it's hard to find like where you fit in with people.
Yeah.
A lot of them are based on, do you have the same experiences? I only have half of those experiences. And so they're like, oh, well then, does that really count?
We hope that you enjoyed our little conversation and that it was thought-provoking for you. And that, we hope you like the poem. It's once again, it's Ars Poetica by Jose Olivares, and you can find.
Don't forget to follow us on Instagram
because we follow us.
Post weekly.
Yes, on
every
Wednesday. We thank you for listening to us. Thank you. Bye.
Ya se encontraron las puertas de banco de mi papá.
Ajá. ¿Y? Wait, ¿en serio?
Sí.
What's going on?
Francisco, nada, el dinero es mío.
No, es mío.
¡Es mío! ¡No!
The usual. Family stuff, I think. My dad never really got along with like my aunt and my uncle, so.
Sí, así estas cosas, no sé, de verdad, aquí están tomando sus notas y es una cosa muy pero.
I wish that were me.
No manches.
Estamos en el baño.